The story you're about to see is a big fat lie. No names have been changed to protect anybody.
The greatest cartoon characters of all time, classic television, exciting football in the spring. This is the USCFL Network, celebrating 40 years of excellence.
Let's get ready to rumble!
And now, the USCFL Network, in association with YouTube, presents the USCFL Postgame Show. Here's once again is Robbie Graham.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network, here to bring you the highlights of the first weekend of the quarterfinals, Week 13 of the USCFL's 2020 season. Of the 8 teams that made the quarterfinals this year, 5 teams are quarterbacked by a female character. And of those 5 female characters, 3 of them played this weekend, and all of them are superheroines. We have a very interesting week to talk about as we present the highlights of the first 2 games. We had a game in Richmond, Virginia for the ages for the Princess of Power. And for the first time ever, the 2 comic book titans, Marvel Comics and DC Comics, met on the gridiron for the first time. And we'll talk about the results of that game. And it'll be interesting to see how next weekend's competition will play out. Because next week we have the 2 champions of the Disney Bowl era playing against each other, and a game between another popular comic strip and comic book character against a mystery solver. But let's talk about this weekend right now. And after we take a brief pause, we will talk about and present the highlights of Game 25, the first game of the quarterfinals between the Fox All-Stars and the Filmation All-Stars. Welcome back. We have all heard that term Cinderella team. That's a team that has done badly for a number of years, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they become major contenders for a championship. I believe that this year's Cinderella team in the USCFL is definitely the Filmation All-Stars. And Cinderella herself isn't wearing glass slippers, but high-heeled boots instead. Shira has just been on fire here in the USCFL for the last 3 games. She has thrown for 1,137 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions in her last 3 games. The first game, in Game 3, she was knocked out with an injury midway through the first quarter and did not return. So her stats were not as big as the last 3 games have been. But in Game 25 against the Fox All-Stars, Shira and Bart Simpson squared it off, and for a while it looked as if Bart Simpson and the Fox All-Stars was going to send Cinderella home and turn her coach into a pumpkin. But in the first quarter of this game, Shira herself ran in a touchdown from 9 yards out to take the 7-0 lead. Fox tied the game later in the first quarter as Bart Simpson threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to his sister Lisa. And in the second quarter, the Fox All-Stars began to get on fire themselves. Bart Simpson threw another touchdown pass, this time to Taranga Leela of Futurama, and then a 3-yard touchdown run by Philip Fry, also of Futurama. But that would be all the Fox All-Stars could get, because after that, the Filmation All-Stars took over this game and dominated. Shira threw 2 touchdown passes, one to her fellow castmate Flutterina, and the second, a 67-yard strike to her brother's gal pal, Tila. And in the second half, it was all Filmation, and only allowing Fox to score 2 field goals. And Shira threw another touchdown pass to Tila midway through the third quarter, also for 63 yards. And again, all Fox could get were 2 field goals, one late in the third quarter and the final score in the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, fellow castmate Spinnerella sealed the deal for Filmation as she ran the ball in from 16 yards out. And following an Adora field goal, 20 seconds later, Trapjaw of the He-Man series took a 23-yard interception return for a touchdown. The Filmation All-Stars defeated the Fox All-Stars 48-27 and will advance to the semifinals. And because of their score, most likely they will retain home field advantage. Let's talk about the stats for just a moment. Bart Simpson went 30 of 50 for 373 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. And again, one of them turned into a pick 6, for which Trapjaw earned game MVP honors. He was the savior last week against Nickelodeon, and he sealed the deal once again for Filmation against the Fox All-Stars. Philip J. Fry of Futurama carried the ball 31 times for 103 yards and 1 touchdown. Lisa Simpson caught 7 passes for 157 yards and a touchdown. And on Filmation side, Shira went 23 of 33 for 413 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Spinnerella carried the ball 30 times for 140 yards and a touchdown. Tila should have been the game MVP. She caught 8 passes for 214 yards and 2 touchdowns. She averaged nearly 27 yards per reception. And again, the Filmation All-Stars are going on to the semifinals. One more victory and they will end up going to Disney World. Now, can this Cinderella do what other previous Cinderellas might have done, might not have done in the past, to go on to win the USCFL championship? Well, only time will tell, and in 2 weeks we will find out for sure. And here are the highlights of this great game. After a brief pause, we will talk about and present the highlights of Game 26 from Kansas City and the first ever meeting between the Marvel Comics All-Stars and the DC Comics All-Stars on the football field. Welcome back. The DC Comics All-Stars, originally known as the Justice League, came into the USCFL in 2006. The Marvel Comics All-Stars came into the league in 2012. And for the first time ever, these comic book titans met on the gridiron. It was bound to happen eventually. Again, never before has these two teams played against each other. And it was no contest for Marvel Comics. DC Comics dominated the first quarter of this game and led 17-0 afterwards, thanks to 2 touchdown runs by Robin and a field goal by Batgirl. In the second quarter, the Marvel Comics All-Stars finally got on the board with a field goal from Spider-Woman. And then Wonder Woman threw a 78-yard strike to the Huntress 15 seconds later and took a 24-3 lead at that point. But the Marvel Comics All-Stars did come back with a touchdown thanks to Jubilee of the X-Men. She caught a 28-yard pass from She-Hulk, and a Batgirl field goal late in the first half gave DC Comics, a 27-10 halftime lead. In the third quarter, it looked as if that we were going to have another third quarter without a score. Wolverine of the X-Men had to be taken out of the game due to an injury in the first half. He was replaced by his backup, Susan Richardson, otherwise known as the Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four. She carried the ball in 3 yards for a touchdown, and at the end of 3 quarters, DC Comics was still up 27-17. But it was all DC Comics in the fourth quarter. A Batgirl field goal and another Wonder Woman touchdown pass to tight end Power Girl, but with a failed 2-point conversion. That was all the scoring that was needed. And the DC Comics All-Stars ended up winning the game 36-17. Now, Wonder Woman won this game. She-Ra won her game. Is it possible that these two heroines will meet in the semifinals? We don't know as of yet. We have to wait to see what the scores are like next week. But right now as it stands, DC Comics will have home field advantage unless the winners of the next 2 games doesn't score more than 36 points. Again, we'll see what happens. Now, as for the stats, we'll begin with Marvel Comics. She-Hulk went 27 of 48 for 267 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Susan Richardson carried the ball 20 times for 109 yards and a touchdown. Jubilee caught 6 passes for 102 yards and a touchdown. The Beast of the X-Men had 8 tackles, 1 assist, 1 sack, and 1 interception. For DC Comics, Wonder Woman went 23 of 44 for 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Robin was the game MVP as he carried the ball 38 times for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Power Girl led the DC Comics receivers with 9 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. And with that, DC Comics moves on to the semifinals. Again, the question is, who will they play against in the semifinals? Again, only time will tell, and we have to wait till next week to find out. And here are the highlights of this first ever meeting between these 2 comic book titans. After a brief pause, we will look into next week's games as we present the games between the first two champions of the Disney Bowl era, the defending champion Jim Henson All-Stars against the 80s All-Stars in Miami, and the comic strip All-Stars against the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars from Atlanta. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Next week, we've got two good games in the quarterfinals, and we will find out who will play against each other in the semifinals. First, let's talk about next Friday's game in Miami. The defending champion, Jim Henson All-Stars, are looking for their 10th straight win, and they take on the 80s All-Stars, the champions from 1 year ago. Now, if either of these teams should advance to the semifinals, at least one of them might go on to play in the Disney Bowl. But Jim Henson is favored to win this matchup. As for the other game in Atlanta between the comic strip All-Stars and the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars, as long as Daphne Blake is on her game, Hanna-Barbera is poised to win this competition. But Charlie Brown is no slouch either. He's got just as much awards and accolades as Daphne does. So it's going to be an interesting matchup next weekend. Now, as far as the winners of our first two games are concerned, it is possible that Wonder Woman and She-Ra will meet either in the semifinals or even for the league championship. Again, it's possible. It's also possible they might play against each other as well. But again, that still remains to be seen. We have to find out who wins next week and how the teams will stack up. But either way you slice it, there will be a Wonder Woman / She-Ra, at least an exhibition match, if not for the semifinals or for the league championship. Recently, another YouTube channel called Death Battle did a death battle between Wonder Woman and She-Ra. Now, I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I'm not going to say who won, who lost, how the fight went. You're going to have to find out for yourself. And I did post a link in the description of this video. So next Friday, we're going to find out who will face each other in the semifinals. And join us then as we present and show the highlights of the game between the Jim Henson All-Stars and the 80s All-Stars from Miami, and the comic strip All-Stars against the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars from Atlanta. And until then, this is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network wishing you peace. Take care and stay safe.